Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the videos.
Hello friends, welcome to Ganesh IAS Academy. This is the new session. In this session, we are going to discuss about the previous year UPSC geography question. So we already did a session related to the economy. In this session, it is totally different based on the factors like we are going to discuss about what are the possible questions they may ask for this 2025 prelims. So that is the new thing we are going to add it. So based on the current affair and also based on the previous year questions pattern, we are going to decode that what is the possible question they may ask for this 2025. So that will be more useful for your upcoming prelims exam. So please make a note of it. That will be more useful for your upcoming prelims exam. Let's start the session. Yes. This question was asked in 2023. This question is about arable land, irrigated lands, and the productivity, agriculture productivity. First of all, this question is somewhat different from all other questions based on the reason is going to compare the China and India based on the arable lands and the irrigated land and the agriculture productivity. So this is the some peculiar questions asked by the UPSC in 2023. First of all, you have to know that why they asked these kinds of questions. That is the major thing you have to decode. Based on that only you can prepare for your upcoming exams. So there is a comparison between the India and China. So why they did it? Whether it is connected to any current affairs or not. So that is the peculiar thing you have to ask. So why they ask these kind of questions? It's about this thing. So state of world population report 2023. In 2023 only, India crossed China based on the population and India became the world's largest population. Okay, so based on the population data, India crossed and it reached the first position in the population, and we pushed the China to the second level. So in the state of population report, they compared India and China in the agriculture. So based on the agricultural data, they compared India and China in this report. So the major peculiar part of this question is they actually compared about the agriculture productivity and also availability of the lands and also irrigated land mass. That was in this report. Based on that only they asked a question about the arable lands, irrigated fields and productivity. So if you are facing these kinds of questions, first of all, before getting into the question, if you are facing these kinds of current affairs, usually the aspirants will have a thought that so the current affair is about the population. There is the possibility of any questions from the human geography. In that way only the aspirants will think. So they may ask about IMR, MMR or TFR. So this is the thought process we usually have. By studying the state of world population report, and India crossed the population and it became a first in the world population means. So we usually have a thought that so that there is a definitely the question will be from the IMR, MMR or TFR or any other data related to the human geography. But UPSC did something other than that. They connected this human geography topic with agriculture. Why they did it? So the reason behind why they doing this is it's about sustainability of the population. So even though the population is growing, whether it is sustainable or not. So if the sustainability is, if you are going to speak about the sustainability, you have to speak about the agriculture, because the agriculture is only going to provide the health to the population. Based on the health only, there is the education. Based on the education, there is the skill development. Based on the skill, there is the economic growth. So, which means just because being the world's largest population, just because being a huge demographic dividend, we can't achieve the economic growth. It is directly related to the agriculture. So the agriculture is going to provide you the healthy food. Due to that healthy food only, you can do the activities related to the work. So the agriculture is directly connected to the population health. This is the major factor that was discussed in the State of World Population Report. In that, they compared about the agriculture productivity of India and China. Whether the India's population will sustainable, whether they will make a breakthrough in the economic growth or not. That is what discussed in this report. In that report only, they spoke about the agriculture data of India and then China. Based on that only, they asked this question. What you have to do is, if you are facing a current affair, you have to connect it with the, you have to make a 360-degree analysis related to the current affair. Which means in a month, there will be only 10 to 15 current affairs. That 10 to 15 topics are repeatedly discussed in the newspaper based on the articles or some other thing. In that scenario, what you have to do is, you have to make a 360-degree analysis and you have to try to connect it with all other topics. If you are facing these kinds of current affairs, you have to connect it with agriculture, you have to connect it with the political parameter, you have to connect it with the human geography. So in that way, you have to make a diverse connectivity. You have to connect the dots. If you are able to do that, with that, just 15 topics of monthly current affair, you can easily get through the prelims. Because they only do that thing. Usually what the aspirant does, if there is a report about the population, they only try to connect it with the human geography, but they ask a question from the agriculture. In that scenario, what you have to do is, you have to think based on the previous questions. You have to think in a wider manner. With that only, you can easily clear the prelims. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about this question. India has more arable area than China. First thing is, when comparing to the land area, India is having very smaller land area comparing to the China. It's a relative parameter. When you are comparing to the China, the land area for India is very limited. But what is this arable land? Arable land is nothing but the area that is available for the cultivation. So if the land is able to cultivate, if the land is able to produce a crop, then that land is called as the arable area, which means the land with sufficient nutrient availability and also water availability. It is called as the arable land. So when it comes to India, India contains more arable area than China. Even though China is it's a wider region, the arable area for China is very limited because the wide region are covered with the desert area and also hilly terrains for China. So the arable land, the land with sufficient nutrient availability is very limited for China when comparing to the India. This is the first thing. So this statement is actually right. But what the aspirants will do is they will just compare the land area. Just being comparing the land area means you will say that this statement is wrong, but it is not about the land area, it is about a arable area. So you have to know about what is arable area. This is what the statement itself was discussed in that current affair. Next, the proportion of the irrigated area is more in India as compared to China. So first of all, what is irrigated landmass? Irrigated landmass versus rain-fed irrigation. So irrigated landmass is nothing but the land is having the water availability for the 365 days based on the canal irrigation, pipeline, tank irrigation, etc. These are called as the irrigated landmass, which means the water is stored. The water is stored and it is used in the lean season. This is called as the irrigated landmass. When it comes to the rain-fed irrigation, there is no storage facility and it is purely based on the rain-fed. Only at the time period of the rainfall, only at the time period of the monsoon, they will go for a cultivation. That is called as rain-fed irrigation or rain-fed agriculture. When comparing the proportion of the irrigated area, when it comes to India, it is having a lesser availability of the irrigated landmass. Whereas for China, the irrigated landmass is higher. The reason is it contains more dams. But when it comes to India, the irrigated landmass is very limited. So here, when it comes to India, more regions are covered only by the rain-fed farming. But this statement is saying that the proportion of the irrigated area is more in India compared to China. This statement is wrong. Okay. Next, the average productivity per hectare. What is productivity? Which means per hectare of land. Comparing the per hectare of land. So in the per hectare of land, you are able to produce 10 tons of rice. And in another land per hectare, they are able to produce 20 tons. Then the agriculture productivity for, consider it as a A and consider it as a B. The agriculture productivity for B region is higher. So agriculture productivity is nothing but the yield. So how much you are able to produce, that is called as agriculture productivity. The average productivity per hectare in Indian agriculture is higher than China. This is also false. The productivity is higher for China when comparing to the India. So this statement is also wrong. See, even though if you are not able to decode these two statements, but with some basic understanding, you can easily find the answer. The basic understanding is for the larger productivity, larger producers, like when it comes to the country which is the largest producer of something like wheat, it is China. When it comes to rice, it is China. Okay, and it's for when it comes to all other crops, even it is a millet, it is China. So when it comes to the largest producer in the world means for the most of the crops, it is either China. Mostly it will be China. The second place will be the India. So in that scenario itself, you can say that these two statements are wrong. Without directly knowing these two statements, you can think and you can easily say that these two statements are wrong. Okay, but for the first statement, it is somewhat tricky one. Without knowing the arable landmass, you can't answer this question. You can't answer this statement. Okay, so for this question, how many of the above statements are correct? It is the only one. So this is how the UPSC will frame a question. You will think in certain manner, okay, but they will connect it to the many dots, and based on that dots they will ask a question. So this is about a human geography, but they connected it with the agriculture and they ask a question. So these are the certain data. So arable land is the land that is suitable for growing crops. It includes the field farms where the food grains, vegetables and other crops are cultivated. This land is fertile and has good soil quality and get enough water for farming. Next is around 156 million hectares of arable land for India, okay, and when it comes to China, it is only 120 million. Next, India has the higher proportion of the irrigated land than China. China's irrigation cover is 41% cultivated area and India is 48. Next, the average productivity per hectare is higher in China. Okay, so these are the things, some factual data. So based on these kinds of questions, what they asked for 2025. We all know that what is BRIC nations. So the BRIC nations recently formed a group called as BRICS Agriculture Working Group. So this was in the news. So they may ask a question based on this. When it comes to the BRIC nations, BRICS accounts for 30% of the world's farmland and leads global export of meat, rice, soybeans, wheat and corn. So based on this, they may ask a question. There was an article which compared BRICS with G7 countries based on the agricultural production. So there was an article related to this BRICS and the G7. It is connected to the agriculture. So they may ask any questions from the agriculture working group, or else they may ask a question based on the agriculture productivity of the BRIC nations. First of all, you have to know something about what is this BRICS. So BRICS actually created for, the motto of the BRIC is to stand against the Western organization. Western organizations, or else the organization, international organizations that are mostly dominated by the Western countries. For example, when it comes to the World Bank, it is dominated by the US, okay, US and the European nations. And also when it comes to the IMF, again it is dominated by the US and the European nations. To overcome this thing, the BRICS created the, for the mirror image of the World Bank, they created the New Development Bank. For IMF, they created the Contingency Reserve Agreement. So to overcome these things, they created the parallel organizations. In that way, now they want to overcome the dominance of the Western nations in the agriculture. They created the BRICS Agriculture Working Group. BRICS Agriculture Working Group. In that way, there may be any questions related to the BRICS Agriculture Working Group, or else the productivity of the BRICS nations, or else the exports dominance of the BRICS nations. They may ask any question. So there is a possibility for the questions they may ask from the BRICS. So recently the new countries are also added to the BRIC nations. So you have to please note that also. They may ask a question from that. So the recent countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, UAE are the full members. So now the BRICS is about 9. BRICS is actually dominated by the 5 countries. Now it is replaced with other. It is added with other some countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and UAE. So now BRICS is about 9 members. So there may be questions related to the BRIC nations, or else the agriculture production comparison between the BRICS and the G7. There is a possibility of question. Okay, so please make a note of it. That will be more useful for your upcoming prelims exam. Okay, thank you.